Good evening. My name is Sonia Samtani, and welcome once again to Behind the Mask, bringing you real and authentic conversations that you don't have in your daily lives. Today, I'd like to talk about our internal dialogue, particularly the impact of our interpretation and the words that we use. So we use language and words to understand ourselves, our lives, and the world that we live in. So the words we use and how we interpret and understand them have given us our current perception of the world. So to change that perception, we simply need to use different words and understand things differently to feel different. So for example, I have heard many people say statements like, "This is the story of my life. I'm always the last one to get anything. Everyone else is better than me and nothing good ever happens to me." Can any of you relate to any aspect of that? I know I have in the past. And this is one person's interpretation. And those words are actively creating their identity and beliefs about themselves. And because they believe it, they will keep proving it to be true, even if it's not relevant. So you see, you only need to make the same interpretation 3 times for something to be a deep-seated belief. And then it will become the story of your life, and it can rule you for the rest of your life. So for example, when you were young, if your mother paid more attention to your sister than yourself, perhaps you interpreted this at that time like, "I'm not good enough to get attention." And then later on, you went to school and you tried to voice yourself in class, and you felt like your teacher ignored you and listened to your friend instead of you. And this could be the second time you interpreted, "I'm not good enough to get attention." And then later on, when you got a grade B in maths, your father said, "This is not up to standard," and didn't talk to you properly for a week. And that could be the third time, and you really acknowledge to yourself that I must really not be good enough to get any attention. And then this becomes your truth. And after that, you will prove to yourself in your life time and time again, in so many ways, just how unworthy of attention you are. And as an adult, you'll feel lost and lonely and undeserving of that attention. So it started with the formation of the belief first, the first time you interpreted it, and then it's the confirmation the second time, and the third time it becomes the acceptance of this as the ultimate truth. And what we often don't get is that we have created this interpretation. It's our choice. We interpreted that, so if we created it, it's possible to uncreate it too, if that's a word. But what I'm saying is, what's behind the mask for so many of us is that we don't see the part that we play in this game. So when we're faced with an uncomfortable situation and it evokes a feeling that we don't like, we make an interpretation about that situation. Then we form a coping strategy. How am I going to think? Am I going to run away? Am I going to face it? Am I going to become the victim and say I don't deserve attention? And that coping strategy stays with us for the rest of our lives. And these are the unconscious patterns that run most of our lives subconsciously. And these patterns are usually formed very early on. And it can be formed as early as when we are in our mother's womb or even at birth, because the subconscious mind is collecting all of the data. So I know a lovely lady who is a people pleaser. So she cannot say no, and she cannot stand up for herself. And she will always go according to what other people want. So when I trace this back to where this behavior first started, we went back to when she was born. And at that point, her whole family was disappointed that she was a girl and not a boy. And the family spoke about the possibility of giving her up for adoption. And at that time, as a baby, she could feel the rejection, even if she didn't understand it fully. And it was collected in her subconscious mind. She felt extremely unwanted, and the subconscious coping mechanism that she developed was, "I will do anything to be liked and wanted." And this story ran her life. She then became a doormat and a people pleaser, and she just couldn't say no. She had absolutely no willpower. So folks, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is twofold. First, I would like to invite you to become aware of the way that you interpret things. You can differentiate factual reality from your interpretation so that you don't accumulate more limiting beliefs and coping strategies that don't work for you. And secondly, know that any limiting story that you are telling yourself about your life is not the truth. So if that story is being playing over and over again, it's just an interpretation that you've made in the past. If you like, you can even trace back to when you created it, and you will consciously begin to realize that this does not have to run your life anymore. The past is over, and you can finally be free.